Our home was falling apart because of my mother's secret. Days passed peacefully in Odo-Aye village. The laughter in Iya Dara's compound continued to echo each morning, and the smell of pepper, smoke, and roasted maize lingered in the air. To the villagers, mother and daughter were the picture of joy, hardworking, humble, and deeply devoted to each other. But behind that peace, something unseen had begun to take root. It started with the wind. One late afternoon, as the sky began to change from blue to amber, a strange breeze swept through the village. It was softer than usual, yet it carried a chill that brushed against the skin like a warning. Dora was washing vegetables by the stream when she felt it first. The trees bent slightly as if whispering secrets to each other, and the water rippled though there was no stone or fish to disturb it. A cold shiver ran through her, but when she turned around, there was nothing, only the sound of birds fading in the distance. That night, Dora dreamt of her mother standing beside a river under the moonlight, whispering words she could not understand. The voice was gentle but filled with pain. Iya Dara's face was wet with tears, her hands reaching toward something hidden in the dark water. Dora tried to move closer in the dream, but each step made her heavier, as though invisible hands were holding her back. Then suddenly, her mother turned to her, eyes red and desperate, and everything went silent. When she woke, her heart was pounding. Sweat clung to her skin, and the sound of night crickets filled the air. Iya Dara was already awake, sitting outside under the moon, her gaze fixed on the stars. Dora wanted to tell her about the dream, but something in her mother's stillness made her stop. It was as though Iya Dara already knew. In the days that followed, the peaceful rhythm of their lives began to change. Iya Dara grew quieter, often staring into nothingness as though remembering something long forgotten. Dora tried to ignore the rumors, convincing herself it was only fear. But one evening, as she pounded yam by the fire, she felt it again, that same cold breeze from the stream. The flame flickered and went out. For a brief moment, she heard her name, whispered softly like a breath carried by the wind. When she turned, her mother was standing there, watching her with tears in her eyes. That night, Iya Dara did not eat. She sat quietly, staring at her daughter until the moon rose high above them. Then she whispered something under her breath, a prayer or perhaps a plea, before going to bed. Dora could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart uneasy. The words of her grandmother echoed in her mind, some love, when held too tightly, can invite the spirits of sorrow. And though she didn't yet understand it, that night marked the beginning of everything that would follow, the unraveling of love, the awakening of the curse, and the slow breaking of the peace they once knew. She thought her mother's love would protect her. But some love runs too deep. Deep enough to curse your blood. Morning came with heavy clouds hanging over Odo-Aye village. The once bright sun seemed dim, its warmth hidden behind a grey veil. The roosters crowed as usual, but even their sound carried a strange hollowness. For the first time in many months, Iya Dara did not rise with the dawn. She lay quietly on her mat, her face pale, her eyes swollen from tears. Dora entered the hut and found her mother sitting still, clutching her chest as though trying to calm her own heartbeat. The fire in the hearth had died out. The air inside the room was cold, almost lifeless. Iya Dara forced a smile, telling her daughter that she was fine, but her voice trembled. Her strength seemed to be leaving her, piece by piece, like water draining from a cracked pot. The villagers soon began to whisper again. They said that Iya Dara had gone to see a strange old woman from the forest days before the wind changed. Some claimed the woman had warned her about something that could not be undone. But no one dared to ask her directly, for there was a weight around her now, a sacred silence that frightened even her closest friends. Dora tried to care for her mother as best as she could. She cooked her favorite meals, fetched water from the stream, and cleaned the compound with a forced smile. But deep inside, fear was growing. At night, she heard her mother talking to someone in her sleep, whispering words that sounded like names, pleading, begging, weeping. Once, Dora woke to find Iya Dara kneeling by the door, pouring palm oil on the ground as though feeding an unseen spirit. Days turned into weeks, and strange things began to happen. Dora carried her mother's love in her veins, until it began to poison her. Pots would fall on their own. The goats refused to enter the compound. The air felt heavier, the nights colder. Sometimes, when Dora passed by the mirror god near the kitchen, she saw her reflection shimmer, like someone else's face was staring back. Then came the sickness. It started with headaches, then fainting spells. Dora's body began to weaken, her skin lost its glow, and her once bright eyes grew dim. The village healer could find no cause. "It is not a sickness of the flesh," he said quietly. "This is something deeper, something tied to blood." That night, Iya Dara sat beside her sleeping daughter, tears streaming down her cheeks. She touched Dora's hair gently, whispering a prayer that came from the depths of her soul. "Forgive me, my child," she murmured. "I thought I was protecting you." As she prayed, the wind outside rose sharply, rattling the wooden door. The small oil lamp flickered and went out. In the darkness, Iya Dara felt a presence, the same one that had haunted her dreams for years. It was the echo of a promise she had made long ago, one that demanded a price she could no longer pay. The next morning, Dora awoke weak and dizzy, her palms stained faintly red though she had touched nothing. She looked at her mother and saw fear, not the fear of death, but of guilt. It was then she began to understand. The curse that now lived in her blood was born not from hatred, but from love, her mother's love. A love that had once been a blessing, but had now turned into a shadow stretching across both their lives. As the wind howled through Odo-Aye that evening, even the villagers felt it, something sacred had been disturbed. And though no one spoke of it aloud, everyone knew that the peace in Iya Dara's home had ended.